Shalom from Jerusalem. This is TV7's Israel at War update. And as we're set to deliberate the latest from here in Israel and throughout the region, today we need to highlight that the main topics of discussion will entail the latest proposal by Qatar and Egypt with regard to the prospects of a new outline for a 60-day cessation of hostilities, along with additional factors. Meanwhile, Defense Minister Israel Katz has approved plans, including a large call-up of reservists, some 60,000 plus. We will discuss that also at length. Next to that, Lebanon. The situation there continues to be precarious. The tensions remain high between Hezbollah and the Lebanese government. The latest meeting between Israel, the United States, and Syrian foreign minister, a meeting that just took place yesterday in Paris, France. And last but not least, are we expected to see yet another cycle of or a battle between Iran and Israel? But before all that, let's highlight today we mark day 684 since the Islamist Hamas perpetrated its atrocities on southern Israel on October 7th of 2023. And with that, Mr. Oren, our TV7 editor-at-large, is joining us today, along with Dr. Rafael Barrahi, who we're happy to see back, formerly Spain's National Security Advisor and CEO of Worldwide Strategy. It's great to see both of you. And Mr. Oren, update us on the latest vis-a-vis the Gaza Strip.
Right. So when you ask where are we, the short answer is we are still in Gaza, almost 2 years to the day, that infamous day. And there are two major developments and one incident which we should touch upon. The incident is a sudden attack by a squad of some 14 members of Hamas in the southern vicinity of Khan Yunis. They attacked an outpost manned by the Kafir infantry brigade, a certain battalion. There was a firefight. Most of the Hamas attackers were killed. The others ran away. There were also 3 Israeli soldiers who were wounded. And what one should say about this incident is that, as far as we know, it was not anticipated. There was no intelligence. They came out of several underground tunnel shafts and joined forces and mounted an attack. Now, it might be a local initiative by a low-level officer or non-commissioned officer, but it should be noted that sometimes they do take the initiative. Now, the two major developments you referred to.
Before you mention, I think it's important to note that no IDF troops were wounded in this exchange.
No, one was badly wounded. The IDF just announced that one was badly wounded and 2 lightly wounded.
Okay, so that is an important statement to add into this context. And out of the 14 Hamas terror operatives believed to be affiliated to Hamas, this is still being investigated, 9 have been eliminated. So it was a failure in every sense of this aspired operation. But those incidents are expected to continue in the context of the current warfare, unless troops start moving again, which is then a lot harder to pin a attack upon the troops, which are, of course, static. They're pretty much sitting ducks.
Well, that's just the question. Who is going to be stationary and who is going to be moving? Because once the Israeli troops come into the urban neighborhoods of Gaza City, and sometimes they have to go and clear high-rise buildings, those still remaining. There are no skyscrapers, but there are 6 to 10 story buildings, and clearing each one could absorb from a company to a battalion. It's quite a mission, and the slower you go about it, the less casualties you're going to have. But then you have to allot more time to the operation. So what you referred to regarding Defense Minister Katz signing off on the operational plans has to do with the various army divisions, one or two, perhaps down the road more, each division having a couple of brigade combat teams, including infantry, mechanized, engineer battalions, and of course the Air Force is hovering above, and artillery giving other coverage. And most of the troops there will be conscripts, will be draftees still in their 3 years of service, or perhaps the fourth year, which was added during the war. The 80,000 reserve soldiers, 60,000 new ones, and 20,000 extended are probably going to replace the regular troops now manning the other borders: Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Egypt, and of course, Judea and Samaria. This is the plan. Now, regarding the negotiations, as far as we know, day before yesterday, on Monday, Hamas has given its response to the mediators regarding this particular formula, which sounds suspiciously similar to what we have heard about since January. The second phase of the two-phase solution, which was offered late during the Biden administration, but bolstered by President Trump and his emissary Witkoff. Now, the Israeli Security Cabinet is yet to be called into session by Prime Minister Netanyahu. When it does, we will probably hear some heated exchanges, but eventually Netanyahu will force his way. And if, as reported, he is now willing to accept this deal, we will have this interim deal very soon.
Well, it's too early to tell. There are two factors here that need to be taken into the equation. The first one is President Trump is keen on seeing a cessation of hostilities implemented. Naturally, they want to see this war come to an end. So do Israelis, to be quite frank, but not under any condition. And therefore, the second element that we need to take into consideration is that the map, the map that indicates where the IDF troops would be deployed during the cessation of hostilities and the so-called subsequent processes that are expected to take place is amended. So Hamas responded with an amended deal that needs to be studied now by Israel and the IDF to see whether or not this is something they can live with. Dr. Bardahi, I'd like to hear your take on the Gaza situation from a strategic perspective. Is this the time to reach a final negotiated solution and to establish additional concessions possibly? Or are we expected to see the IDF really push according to the plans that were already ratified by the Security Cabinet here in Jerusalem?
Well, there are too many ifs to answer that question, I'm afraid, Jonathan. But in my humble opinion, in this particular moment of time, almost 2 years from October the 7th, I think agreeing with a partial release of hostages, as we always want to see them back home, is not the right answer. I think if the government is serious in mounting the operation and moving into Gaza City and putting more military pressure on Hamas and breaking Hamas down finally, I think the only option for any deal will be the total and immediate release of all alive and dead hostages taken by Hamas. Other than that, it will cause Hamas to regroup, to rearm, and do what we have seen recently, create a kind of guerrilla type of threats against Israel, which is unacceptable. I think the solution has to be clearly a Gaza Strip that is not anymore a threat and is not under the government or the authority of any Hamas leadership whatsoever. That's the only option I see 2 years after October the 7th, I'm afraid.
Indeed. Well, let's shift gears to Lebanon. Mr. Owen, what is the current state of play over there?
There is heightened tension. Up to now, it has only been verbal, but obviously words can turn into deeds quite rapidly. The leader of Hezbollah, Naim Qassem, who is not as assertive and charismatic as his predecessor Hassan Nasrallah was, is trying to make up for it by being very aggressive verbally against the government's wishes that Hezbollah, the last and only group in Lebanon to be armed independently of the government, lay down its arms. And right now, there is a sort of a standoff with the president, Joseph Aoun, formerly the commander of the Lebanese armed forces, insisting that Hezbollah do it. Hezbollah coming back and saying no, under no circumstances. We don't know of any real mediation effort between them. There is still time to solve this standoff, but if it doesn't, it could become a civil war and, no less importantly, spill over into an exchange between Hezbollah and Israel, breaking the ceasefire which was established last November.
Well, Dr. Bardahi, I'd like to hear your assessment of the situation there, since on the one hand, we do hear, as Mr. Owen has mentioned, that Hezbollah is adamant on maintaining the power that it has left. It does no longer possess actual strong capabilities to be able to project power beyond the borders of Lebanon, but nonetheless, it does seek to position itself, domestically at least, as a powerhouse and potentially also limit its friction with any type of forces for the purpose of rearming, something that Israel has pledged to frustrate. And we just saw another large truck trying to transit through Syria being confiscated. But there are plenty of those trucks filled with the different Grad missiles and other type of munitions that are making their way to Hezbollah. Is that a scenario in which we could ultimately find ourselves where Israel would be forced to yet again act and Lebanon seize the opportunity to basically say, you know what, if you don't disarm willingly, we will withdraw from southern Lebanon and let Israel finish the job?
Well, I think if Hezbollah was such an important strategic threat against Israel and others, it's because it was a real state within the state of Lebanon. That ability, for the time being, has evaporated. So I think it's a much weaker situation and position to establish itself again as the major force within the Lebanese government. But having said that, obviously they don't want to be disarmed. They would like to get some or to recover some kind of strength because that's the natural thing to do for them. Fortunately, I will say that before Israel is forced again to act militarily against Hezbollah, there are still some windows for the diplomatic front to explore. No? I think the Europeans, which are always very keen in intervening in the Middle East under the flag of peace, they can do something to help the Lebanese government, to help them to disarm factually, mostly Hezbollah. And I think the French could take the leadership to do that, no? Also with other countries in Europe, and also with Americans behind them. But I think there are still some options to explore, and before anything more dramatic has to be considered. Fortunately, I would say.
Well, Lord knows that they could use the experience talking about the French, considering what's festering in their own backyard. But nonetheless, when we're talking about the complexities for the northern front of Israel, we just saw yesterday a meeting between the special envoy of the United States, of President Trump, to Syria, Tom Barrack, meet with the foreign minister of Syria and with the Minister for Strategic Affairs. Mr. Owen, can you give us some understanding of what that was about?
Well, obviously, Israel presented its security concerns, and it does have an order of priority. At the top of its list is the security of its own northern border and communities, Mount Hebron, the Golan Heights, and the danger that forces not under the control of the quote-unquote central government in Damascus become a threat to Israel, be they Iranian proxies, Muslim militias from who knows, Afghanistan or other stands, and so on and so forth. The second priority is protecting the Druze community, especially in the Asweda governorate. Israel has intervened already, even when the Syrians or other Syrians attacked a couple of Druze towns or villages not far from Damascus. But obviously, the biggest concentration of the Druze community, almost 1 million men, women, children, the elderly, 2,000 of whom were massacred already. This is in Asweda, and Israel, whether through Dermer or in meetings between security officials, gave its unvarnished opinion that it would not stand aside if harm comes to them. And then the third priority is to avoid friction with the Turkish forces, because Ambassador Barak is credentialed to Ankara. He's operating out of the Istanbul Consulate General as the sort of High Commissioner to Syria. But he is also conversant with Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan, who already had a phone call from Marco Rubio, his counterpart, following the Trump session with Zelensky and other European leaders. And of course, a major topic in the Rubio-Fidan conversation had to do with Syria, but they also touched on other regional issues.
Well, yesterday, the deputy assistant to the president, namely Dr. Sebastian Golka, who is also the senior director at the National Security Council for Counterterrorism, visited Hudson Institute, where he spoke also extensively about the situation in Syria at large, Damascus, as well as in Sweden in particular. And he highlighted that they are hopeful to make this a success story. But nonetheless, he did highlight that their main job right now is to prevent additional massacres, as he put it. We're seeing that this Damascus regime, despite claiming to be reformed, is not fully reformed, which is an understatement. And the areas that ultimately are adjacent to Israel, particularly in the Quneitra, but south from Quneitra, more in the area of the Dara Governorate, as well as in Rif Dimashq, which also borders with Sweda from the other side, supposedly east. They're plagued with jihadists and Islamists and various organizations from Hamas to Palestinian, other Palestinian groups that are also very much close to the Muslim Brotherhood, and of course Islamic State and Al Qaeda. Dr. Barrahi, is this a scenario that Israel can come to terms with, or is this something that it will have to push for a different calibrated solution in collaboration with the Americans?
Well, I think we need to bear in mind that Syria has been in the last 14 years a patchwork of different groups, no? Minorities and militias and external forces. So to ask for a complete solution to this strategic landscape is probably too much. But obviously, I think we would like to see the new leadership in Damascus, or not already so new, but the leadership in Damascus to control better all the groups that are present in Syria, no? And which are posing some threats to other minorities and also to Israel and other neighbors. So I think if we tend to believe that the new leadership is really saying what they think and what they believe, and getting closer and closer to our values, let's say somehow, we need to help them to get control and grasp the power over those groups which are really projecting forces and killing others and probably thinking attacking Israel in the northern front as well. No? But Israel is well prepared, I think, to deal with that contingency if it arises. But I think the problem is more than military, it's more strategic and political, how to stabilize the new government, how to make the new government functional all over the country, and then we will see.
Indeed. Well, another point that Dr. Gorka has mentioned was that Turkey and Israel need to reach some sort of modus vivendi with regard to Syria to be able to also avoid friction between one another. Is that something that you see Ankara and Jerusalem diplomatically reach a certain type of such a reality?
Well, I think it has to be a modus vivendi, finally. Ankara has been trying to exploit the vacuum in Syria to project the power of Turkey into the region. We know that Erdogan is quite hostile to Israel. But again, I'm one of those who believe that there are certain limits to what Erdogan can achieve, even in Syria. So I think reality is much more important here than what we tend to believe. And at some point in time, if there is any potential friction, it will be dealt appropriately between the two sides, I think, in order to avoid any major escalation.
Indeed. Well, in my opinion, Erdogan is simply the classical term of anti-Semitism is applicable to him. Something that I know people in the know are recognizing, not here in Jerusalem necessarily. I'm talking about people in Washington and in other European countries. But one more point, since we don't have very much time left. Sorry, Mr. Oren, I'd like to ask Dr. Bardahi about Iran. Is it in a position to try and potentially even attack Israel without warning in such a scenario where yet another cycle is to be expected?
I don't think that in the near term, though they may be crazy and launch a new missile or a new attack. But sincerely, the problem is that we should not forget that Iran is still there, that their ambitions are still there, and we need to preserve our policy and our actions to avoid the Iranian authorities to reassume the nuclear activities, the program, and the ballistic missile components. So we need to get Iran into the picture. The campaign, Rising Lion, was there. The American activities put a temporary end to the nuclear program, but Iran is a big country. Iran has the knowledge, has the capacity to reestablish itself. So we need to be vigilant. Uh, they can come with out of the blue attack, yes, obviously, but I don't think that will be very logical for them to do now.
Mr. Oren, the last minute is yours. In the context of the Iranian portfolio, what are the preparations here in Israel?
Well, in Israel, as well as in other places around the world, everyone is watching what the Trump administration is doing and is preparing to do, because there is only so much attention span which can be devoted to various topics. Now, if President Trump, as well as his envoy Witkoff, who's handling all files, Gaza, Iran, Ukraine, if they are now focused on Russia, Ukraine, obviously they are putting off both Gaza and Iran for later this month or early September.
Well, let us not forget that the E3 has set the deadline for the Iranians to resume negotiations by the 31st of August, or else they will spark the so-called snapback mechanism, which includes a list of sanctions that were already ratified by the UN Security Council resolution, various UN Security Council resolutions, and therefore it would put Iran in a very tough position. So we do expect to see some type of movement in the near future, because the Iranians, according to what I hear, are quite concerned about that. Is that a correct assumption, Dr. Bardahi?
Yes, I think it is. I think the snap sanctions, if reintroduced, will really hurt Iran. But knowing the Iranians' abilities for tactics and negotiations, I think they will come at the last minute or the last second with something to postpone the reintroduction of snapback sanctions. So let's see. But if the Europeans are serious, which I think they are, yes, the time is running out. It's just only 10 days before everything is put back in place.
It's not unheard of for deadlines to be extended.
Right, that is true, but there is also a deadline, a strong deadline about the termination of the snapback mechanism by the 18th of October, and the various presidencies of the UN Security Council also include Russia, among others, which would not allow such a Security Council meeting to take place, which would then basically render such an attempt mute in the context of bureaucracy. But this is all the time that we have for today. I'd like to thank Mr. Oren and Dr. Bardahi for all of your insights today. And I'd like to thank all of you at home as well. Until our next edition from here in Jerusalem. Shalom.